Good evening. This is Allison Penna, aka Bad Widow. Tonight, I'd like to talk to you about stories, the ones you need to tell and the ones you need to hear. We learn best through stories. We see ourselves more clearly through stories. We can see in the way that we tell particular stories what matters to us. So the telling of stories is really an essential connective tissue between humans. To be able to say, this happened to me, but the way that you say, that the way that you talk about whatever happened to you changes the context and allows a person to hear it a different way than another person telling the same story. So what are the different stories that I have? So I have growing up in New York. I have being single for a long time. I have being married to an artist. I have learning to date again. I have being a widow. I have everything I learned along the way that I now consult with clients on. All the lessons, all the resources, all of that stuff. So the stories that I have are what happened when Dave and I discovered that he was diagnosed with cancer. How did I keep myself whole as a caregiver? One of the things I did was I did cabaret performances. How did I start dating again and find love again? Using an online dating app, when the last time I had dated before that was 28 years ago. A long time, a really long time. So all of these stories matter to someone. So there are stories that we need to tell about our own lives and our own experiences. And we need to tell them for ourselves, because in the telling of our stories, we can see how in that moment in time we saw the world. What was the perspective that we had at that time? And what is the perspective that we have now looking back? And sometimes they're the same and sometimes they're different. So one of the things that stories do for us is they allow us to see our growth, and they allow us to see where we're stuck. Not by somebody telling us, but by our own telling of our own story. So it's really important. The other thing that's essential is that there's somebody who needs to hear the story that you are telling in exactly the way that you're telling it. When I became a widow, I looked around for resources, and I looked around for people who were having a similar experience to me so that I could learn from them, so that I could know from somebody who had been through it that I would make it through. Because honestly, in that first year especially, there were times when I was not sure I was going to make it through, when I really was not sure I was going to make it. And I needed to hear from someone who was writing or speaking from in the middle of their pain. And I couldn't find anybody. Couldn't find anybody who was speaking from that place, from in the center of it. And so I started writing about it because I thought, okay, well, if I'm not finding anyone, then there are other people suffering this as well who aren't finding the resources they need, finding a voice that is speaking to them. So I'm going to provide it. So in your stories, when you tell your stories, there may be someone out there, and you may not even know who it is, and you may not know that it's important or why it's important to the other person when it happens. But there's somebody who needs to hear the stories that you're telling, because you're telling a story that matters to somebody, and you may not even know it. Except that for that person, it may enable them to see their story, their world, their experience as something that they can get through. Or it may give them resources or a community. Okay, this is someone who knows me, who knows this. I'm not alone. Stories are essential. Stories make us human. Stories connect us. So today what I'd like you to do is to think about what are the stories that you need to tell. whether or not you think they're important. What are the stories that you need to reflect on that come out of your own life and speak about? I used to love talking to my grandfather because when he died, he was 99 years old. And in the 99 years he lived, so many things happened in the world. And for him, it was commonplace. And for me, it was a revelation. So, what are the stories you need to tell for yourself and for those who need to hear them? I invite you to start telling them, because life is short. None of us know how much time we have. And there's someone who needs to hear what you have to say. And that someone may be you, or it may be somebody else. So start talking, people. Allison Penna, aka Bad Widow. See you tomorrow.